Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pashhammer. So today is a very special occasion. I have a special guest here with me today, winner of the Square-based Open Toronto and the Square-based Online Tournament 2.0, the Crusher of Dreams. It is Mr. Adam Slutsky. Hello, Adam. How you doing?
How's it going, Tash? How you doing?
Doing not too bad. I've managed to get over the horrific experience of our finals in that last event. I think I've finally stopped crying myself to sleep, but enough to be able to go out into the daylight and enjoy life. So I'm glad that you're still with us and not dead. So the question the question I ask everybody is what's your favorite dice?
Anytime I get to roll a six,
Sweet. Six on symbol on a six or symbol on a one?
symbol on a six.
Sweet. The way to do it. Yeah, I think
Symbol on a five or a six, honestly.
five. That's
Mm-hmm.
chaos. That's proper chaos. All right. Okay. Well,
I mean, just for everybody, I do have it literally tattooed on my arm, a five and a six. So there you go. That's true commitment right there, dedication.
that is dedication. Have you got any Warhammer tattoos?
No, no, just the five and the six.
Just SBot 2.0 and SBot Toronto. Like you're just
Yeah.
putting your wins on your arm. Yeah, yeah. As you can tell, I don't have any wins on my arm, so that's not a problem for me. So, all right, cool. So the reason I've got you here today is, other than crushing dreams and winning tournaments, you've actually been busy with another little side project, and that
Yes.
is you've created a ranking system for Warhammer, right? Now,
He,
I will let you speak eventually. This has been something that's been going on for a little while. You've got a little team of people that you're working with. Is that right?
yes. Yeah. It's definitely not me. I don't want to take all the credit by any means. It's a couple of my buddies and myself kind of collaborating together and really coming up with something that I know it's already prevalent in the community. And there's a couple other platforms and channels and everything else that go over this, but
But this
I
one's better,
was
right? I mean, this is a
I
better
don't
one.
want to say it's different. It's not better. Nothing's better. It's all
It's
subjective
all
to a
subjective.
degree.
Okay, okay.
It's all data. It's all
It's all
data.
data.
So
Well, this is basically the key, and I know we're currently all looking at a big spreadsheet, so it's. I want to sort of hammer home the difference between. There are other ranking systems that are out there. Malign Musings has one. Old World Rankings have got one. Like they all use their own little algorithm and bits and pieces. So how is your system different? What does it measure, and why did you create it? What was the purpose of it?
so it's a great question. It is similar in a lot of ways to what's already out there, but I would say one key difference is, and this is something I was really interested in doing, and one of the reasons why I started it was I really wanted to integrate what I would call like the over the table element
Mm.
with the online. So yes, of course, they're two different formats, if you will, of the same game, but they're still like important when it comes to trying to get statistical data
Mm.
overall, and just also trying to like rank things in general. So that was a big driver for me. I noticed that no one was really syncing the two major players in it, BCP, Best Coast Pairings, and New Recruit
Mm.
together. And I'm sure everyone else is probably like working on it, so it's not like this is some revelationary kind of thing that I'm doing, but I happen to be first to it, I guess, or to some degree. And so that was one of the big things. Um, other than that, really, it's just for kind of the purposes of what everyone I would hope is kind of doing this, and that's like it's a passion project. It's a labor of love, and it's supposed to help. There's obviously faction data. There's
Yeah.
individual statistical data for every player, and it really is just like a culmination of all of that. And typically, although Games Workshop maybe wouldn't look at our sheets that we all create and kind of go
We can
through,
only
I would
dream.
hope that right, yeah, I would hope that
They'll watch this video.
the yeah, yeah,
Of
of
course.
course they will. Yeah, JTY is going to shout you out after
Yeah,
this.
100%. It'll be Warhammer 2.0. It'll be like, thanks to that one video that I watched that had Adam and Pash on it, because
Yeah.
that changed everything, and that's what we're here to do, basically. Okay. Well, fair enough. So what? Can you give me some parameters? Like, what does it measure? You mentioned BCP. You mentioned new recruit. It obviously pulls data from online events and in-person events as well. How does it give it like? Just as I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of the maths really. Some people get excited by that, but I just want to know sort of like, okay, what's sort of like the smallest event that you measure? What's the like largest event? Like, what's the parameters on your table here?
Yeah, so I'm looking for anything with 6 players or more. I know that's quite small
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, and at a minimum of 3 rounds or more.
Mm-hmm.
It goes as far as you want to scale it up, and the way that your ranking points or anyone's ranking points would work, it's a linear scale, so it continues to just progress up, and it's based solely on the amount of players and the amount of rounds that are in any given tournament or competition. So you will get points awarded to you, allotted to you for your placement of first through however many, however many participants, whether that's 6 participants or 96 or 140. But there will be a higher weight, if you will, for those tournaments that are larger, that have more rounds, as it probably would make more sense to do since they are arguably more difficult to get higher placement at.
I'm just
That's kind of the baseline of it.
okay.
Um, there's a lot of math in the back sheets, and some
Yeah.
of the people that obviously shout out to, like, Corey. He's one of my friends and regular sparring partners. He's also got an affinity and love for all things statistical. He was a proponent and someone who helped craft the actual, I guess, the points distribution, if you will, and how it distributes to each player. So I feel pretty good in
I
his
like I like how
capabilities.
I like how you've thrown him under the bus. That's to say, like, if there's any problems with the maths, it's Corey's fault.
It's,
It's you're the face of it, but Corey's the number cruncher. All right, that's fine. That's allowed. That's allowed. Okay, fair enough. Well, in that case, I don't want to dwell too much on the sort of the background of it. I think people want to know, like, how can I use this? What purpose does this sort of solve? And I think it's interesting to start pointing out a few things, because at the moment it's basically a spreadsheet, but it's a spreadsheet with a lot of information. It's a form of presenting data. What I'm looking at just now, this is just a aggregated pool of information. This is aggregated pool of players. I'm still scrolling here. I don't know if people can see on the left hand side here. We're in the thousands. So this is essentially, if I'm not wrong, every single person that's ever played Warhammer since the beginning of the old world, right?
yeah,
That's on BCP and new recruit. So, like, it gives us an idea of the overall number of players. I'm still scrolling past the 3,500 here. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Here we go. 3,687. Okay, that's a lot.
there's going to be more in the raw data as well.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. No wonder. Yeah, that's a good point actually.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton more. You'll see like every single iteration of players that also like replicate, right? That
Oh,
multiple
that's right.
entries
That's
that
right.
have
That's right.
done multiple. So you'll see a lot more there. But
Okay.
unique, to your point, like unique total participants or entries, individuals that have done tournaments is somewhere around 30 or 36, 3,700. So
Ooh, shit. Yeah, that is a lot. I am still scrolling. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, interesting, interesting, interesting. So just okay, let's have a look. People will be interested to know where everybody is in the rankings. So let's just
of course,
cut
naturally.
to the chase. Now, of course, you're number one and I'm number two because that's why we released the together. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's not quite correct. Okay, let's have a little look here. So, what we actually have here at the top is Mr. Phil Carl, who is well known, and Luna Valentine second, and you are in fact third. I like how you put yourself third because it's not quite as suspicious as if you were first there.
Yeah,
Um,
it would invalidate everything that I've done, right? All the data
exactly,
collecting. Yeah,
exactly. People would be having questions, and I like how Corey's put himself in fourth there. That's good too. Not too suspicious. That's quite sneaky. All right, okay.
right.
So this is interesting. Let me have a look. So the rankings are actually here in the right hand side, which are a little bit off the screen here, but it doesn't matter. The names are in the correct. I'm sitting here in 18th place. which sounds
Yeah,
about right, to be honest. I'm quite happy with that. There's
very, very solid.
That's pretty solid, yeah. And so I mean, basically, I'm going to start talking about myself because that's the only one that I know, and then you can tell me what that means. So this tells me I've played 7 events, and this is from the 1st of January 2024 to just the beginning of March 2025.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. That's right. Okay, so it's pretty much up to date. Yeah, up to the date of this video. Great. So I've played 7 events, which sounds about right. Yeah. I played 34 games. I've won 25. I've lost 9. Placing score total. So that must be the sort of the scoring that you've given
Exactly. Yeah.
based on the scoring. Okay. Win percentage. Interesting. 74 win percent. Okay. Cool. That sounds about right. Because I don't keep I don't look at my stats, to be honest, very often, but I do think that 75% is probably about roughly where I thought it was. So on a competitive level, so that makes sense. Just looking at a little bit above, there's a couple of people here on 100%, which is very impressive.
Yes.
Robbie Susan, but granted, he's played 4 events and he's won every single game. That is impressive. Okay, there's another person, Josh Hartley, also 4 events, 13 games, 100% win rate. That's well, surely they're the best people in the world, right? Because they've never been defeated. But I take it that those events must be the smaller events.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll typically see. I think for both of them, they're all RTTs. They're more like regionally based events.
Okay. Interesting. Then we got rank, placing score, win, rank, blah blah blah, and then you have this final score. Okay, so this final score, which actually is not in the picture. Let me just shuffle it a little bit. This final score, the four
Mhm.
point nine, how's that worked out? Do you know roughly, even just
Yeah.
as an idea?
Yes. So we've kind of broken it out. We have your placing score, and it's a culmination of everything that you've ever been in, where you've placed there. That's kind of added together. I
Hmm.
believe it's divided. It's divided by your total amount of events, and then it's weighted at 90%, basically, out of a
Okay.
100-point scale.
Hmm.
So 90% of your final score is dictated by your placements.
Okay.
The remaining 10% is dictated by your win percentage.
Okay.
So we,
Interesting.
we didn't we didn't really want it to be just like 100% based off of placement. Um,
Hmm.
we felt like, I don't know, there was just like a little bit of merit to incorporating any kind of other secondary measures, markers, or statistics when it came to giving like a final ranking score.
Okay.
And we felt like win percentage was the easiest. Um, when we first launched this, and for the first like 3 to 4 months, where I was doing a lot of data collection and scraping,
Yeah.
because it took quite a while.
I'd imagine.
Yeah. The third thing we had was our a strength of schedule score.
Hmm.
It was something that the majority of BCP tournaments did. Not all of them, but probably I would say 85% of BCP tournaments had some form of strength of schedule.
Yeah.
And we liked that as just like a third marker. So
Hmm.
for a while, it was about 80% um, was your placement score, 15% was your 10 or 15% was your win rate, and then the last 10% was your strength of schedule.
Okay.
The big departure was that remaining that last like 10 to 15% of BCP tournaments, we just couldn't do anything with the data since it wasn't aligning to one of our 3 weights.
Yeah.
And then the second piece of it was when we started to get to the point of integrating New Recruit.
Yeah.
New Recruit doesn't really do strength of schedule.
Hmm.
So we ended up trying to create our own strength of schedule for New Recruit. And then eventually got to the point where we were like, you know what? This is something that's only accounting for 5 to 10% of the weight anyways.
Yeah.
Let's just divvy that out to the other 2 major metrics we use,
Hmm.
and that way like it'll be seamless in order for us to have like both together and,
Yeah.
and integrated. And that's where we kind of ended up at. So
Okay. So this is interesting because I think this is really the crux of why this system is different to the other existing systems, both which have sort of a shelf life for events. Um,
yeah,
so if I'm understanding this correctly, yours tracks all events that a person's ever done
yeah,
throughout their
yeah.
sort of
It's
old work career, as
it's
it were.
exactly. It's all time statistics, all time data analysis, and then there's like filters that you were looking at the top.
Okay.
So if you select through those filters and you just want to see 2025,
Hmm.
whatever time frame you want to look at, the sheet is all automated, so
Okay.
it will drill out and eliminate, or I should say, it'll just like separate out that data, and you'll just be looking at 2025 metrics, anything that falls under that date range parameter.
Okay.
So it's nice in that regard. It without just like having a half-life or like degrading results over previous timeframes, like it keeps all of that data. You can see it all time. You know, you could be like, what is the all-time statistics of everything? Or you can be like, what is the meta like in the last 6 months? What's the meta like in the last year? And you know, what's the year over year? Like whatever you want to do, it's there for you to filter.
So I guess in that sense, if you have a good event, or if you do well, so say for example, you know, you and I did well at SBOT 2.0, that's basically going to live on there forever. And then, but then if you take, you know, another event and you go, wow, I want to run this crazy cookie list here, and then, you know, you don't do particularly well, that's also going to last on there forever as well, isn't it? So I guess in a way, it's a broad representation of all your games and all your events ever. So I guess that's something that you sort of keep in mind as well. So okay, interesting. I think this is the bit that a lot of people will look at. They'll probably want to, you know, have a look at their own score and what way that carries, etc. But the bit that I really am fascinated about, and the bit that I want to spend a little bit more time on, is really this next bit, and it's specifically the win rate of factions. So I think this is the bit, like you were saying, if GW are watching it, this is the bit to
This
watch.
would be
This is
the bit.
This would be the bit. Okay, cool. So what we have here is basically the win percentage and the podium count, as well as the amount of games played by faction. So, say for example, let's start at the top. We've got Beastmen. We have 1,179 games played. They've won 598, which gives them about a 50%, 50.7% win rate, which to me sounds great. That's probably bang on average, isn't it? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good way to have it. They've been on the podium 77 times. Is it podium? I take it is 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Entrance count. So what's entrance count?
So you kind of have to like break it out. The amount you would have, it would be like skewed the data. Now I actually made this mistake while I was like doing all the podium counts for the original pass through of it. You have to account for each one individual instance that army has been submitted into an event in order to get a correct and appropriate podium placement score, if you will. Otherwise, you'd be like going off of total games played, and then every instance of an entry and every win from that faction in that particular event. So it ends up it's not accurate data basically. So you need to get that kind of sorted out first.
And then is the podium rate essentially how many times they've hit the podium based on the amount of times that they how many events they've basically entered? So if I'm reading that correct, Beastmen have played just over or under 1,200 games. They've won about 50% of them, but they've attended 327 events. Is that right? Or 327 events Beastmen have played. And at those 327, 77 times they've been on the podium.
Correct. Yeah.
It's pretty good. That, to me, just off the cuff, that feels pretty good. A podium rate of 23.5%. But Beastmen, okay, so if Beastmen are the standard, let's move on to the next one. We have Bretonnians, right? So everybody knows Bretonnians are good, right? But you can see just how good. So what we got here in terms of how many times have people taken Bretonnians to an event? We have 751. So that's almost double the amount that people play Beastmen. I'm surprised it's only double the amount, I'll be honest. I feel like every man and their dog plays a Bretonnian army, but okay. And out of that time, and they have a pretty solid podium rate of between 26 and 28%, depending on which you take. So based on this alone, Exiles are the best Bretonnian faction, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have less total data points, right? Like they're not in the thousands. And I think that a lot of that had to do with I might be incorrect on this because I just did a lot of the scraping for it, but I believe in the first couple of months, like I think BCP wasn't breaking them out into their
factions.
armies. Yeah, I think they weren't doing that for their armies. or people just genuinely weren't taking Armies of Infamy in the first couple months. But I don't think that part is. I don't think that's accurate. I think it is that like BCP maybe wasn't breaking them out,
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
they will have less total data points.
Well, I mean, like with anything with data, that the more data you have, the more significant it is. I mean, look at the city state of Nuln. Somebody's taken it to one event.
Yeah,
They got 3 wins with it, which gives them a win rate of 60%. So officially,
they're the
Empire,
best.
they're the best army. Empire, the best
They're the
army. Based on this
100%.
limited information that we have here, Empire are the tip top army. Okay, okay. Actually, no. Hold on. Warriors of Chaos, Heralds, 60. Oh no, hold on. Right. You know what? Let's just let's do this the fun way. I wonder if I can just filter this. I can indeed. Okay, Tomb King's Royal Host, win rate 62.9%. I mean, I could have guessed that. Let's be honest. That
It's
feels natural.
probably based on some recent events as well that we might
Yeah,
know
yeah,
of
yeah. I mean,
that
it's only
have
16.
happened.
It's only 16 armies have actually been there, but out of those 16 armies, almost a 38% podium rate. That's a lot. I wonder if they're all
Yeah,
the big massive royal host lists. I hope they're not. That's a lot of unpleasant
I
feelings.
don't think so. Honestly, they aren't.
Um, no,
For
no.
example, I think what was it at Throne of Skulls? Wasn't it a royal host list that took the tournament
I'm
there?
not sure, but I know that the German comp event, somebody was running an all chariot rule host list, which was quite
Nice.
fun. I enjoyed playing that too. And then, okay, so we have another interesting one: Warriors of Chaos Heralds. Now, Heralds, everybody thinks Heralds are weak as anything, but actually, okay, fine. I mean, it's 18 times they've been taken to an event. They've been on the podium more often than Royal Host, 38.9%. They win in a lot. So actually, to me, this tells me that Heralds are pretty solid. And you know, you look at it,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's again, it's like there's a bit of
limited information. I know. It's not a lot of games. I mean, you're talking in the dozens of games here, not the thousands. Okay, well, let's look at the most significant one, Bretonian. Okay, Bretonian. There's 2 and a bit thousand games. Um, I mean, that's got to be statistically significant. Like, if you were to
oh
filter
yeah,
out all the smaller factions, sub factions, and all the armies of infamy, that's the one that you go, okay, what's the first army that actually is a grand army? And it is Bretonia. Win rate 56%, which feels above where you want it to be, really. But maybe less than some people would think. I think if you ask somebody how often do Bretonians win, they'd probably say, oh, like 75, 80%, maybe. But actually,
yeah,
this says 56. But that again shows you, there's a lot of people playing Bretonians, and not everybody's amazing with them. You can lose with them, believe it or not. Allegedly, I've never seen anyone do it, but I believe it does happen, at least 44% of the time.
yeah. And I think like the big point to a lot of this data, at least from when I was like scraping it, and now that we kind of have some pretty solid statistics behind it,
Yeah.
none of these win rates are actually really out of line, right?
Not
Like
really. So
you
let's look
would,
at the very bottom. We have Skaven with 40%, which again,
yeah,
Skaven at the bottom. Empire is the next significant one. Ogre Kingdoms, Lizardmen, Dwarves. Interestingly enough, Dark Elves. I mean, these. I'm not surprised by these being at the bottom. Dwarves may be a little
yeah,
bit surprised, but the rest of them, yeah, I'm not. If somebody had told me Skaven is the worst faction in Warhammer, I'd be like, yeah, I know that. But if you told me that you know, they're not that much worse than Bretonian, I'd be surprised.
right.
So that is
I,
interesting.
but I
Hmm.
think the big thing that comes from it is, well, it's like twofold, really. More so than maybe other war games and miniature games. I think you see a lot of like the rule of cool, or
Mm. Hmm.
what
Yeah.
we what I've got is what I'm gonna play. I think you're definitely seeing that a lot more in the old world than maybe some of the other like competitive formats like 40K for example, or just something else where there's maybe like more of a propensity for people to like skew towards the best thing that they possibly can build.
Yeah. Of course.
Whereas between like obviously like limited model counts and just not everything being released, and then also like people just like to play like what they have painted and what
Yeah.
looks like
Yeah. It
what's
takes
fun on
time.
the table. Yeah,
It takes time, and you have to remember that other than us, you could probably take a slice out of that top X amount of people that on the previous sheet, and say, other than these people, everybody else generally just plays what they have or what
Yeah,
they have painted, and maybe even
yeah,
most of the top people will play basically the army that they have painted. Like it takes a while to paint an army, you know. Even
uh,
if you
uh,
go,
yeah.
you know, I want to change something. Like it really takes a while to get past that stage. Um,
Phil, I know like Phil, obviously plays both online and person. Like
yeah,
he plays the exact same army. You know, it's the same thing. He has what he has painted in person is what he plays online. Similarly, I do something very pretty much the same. What I have painted and in person, I am playing online.
yeah,
So there's some of that, but by and large, since the majority, like I would say the vast majority of this
mm,
data is for over the table tournaments,
yeah,
um, you're definitely going to see a lot more of that, rule of cool and what I've got is what I'm going to play versus like, hey, I'm going to just play the most optimized thing I possibly
yeah.
can.
And
And because of that function of it, I think that's why these win rates are actually a lot more in line than people would maybe expect.
yeah, I
So,
think so. I mean, when I first looked at this, I was surprised actually how close they were in terms of win rates. Which again is probably just it shows you how sort of balanced this edition is, even though it doesn't feel like it at this stage to some people because they, you know, small differences make feel like they're a big difference. But actually, if you look at the numbers, like it's not. You know, what's the difference between somebody winning 56% of their games and somebody winning 40% of their games, which is sort of like our top and bottom? That it's not that much really. Um, So really small tweaks here and there, composition changes, maybe scenarios, bits and pieces. They could really affect some of these games. So that should be interesting. Um, Last bit I just wanted to mention was literally just the most popular faction. So Warriors of Chaos, most popular faction. Not surprised by that. Closely followed by Bretonians, Orcs and Goblins. I feel like Orcs and Goblins are at every event. Tomb
oh yeah,
Kings again, and Dwarves. Like these are, if that's your five most popular factions, I could definitely believe it. Definitely. High Elves, Empire, VC, Beastmen, Wood Elves, and then you get into the legacy factions, don't you? Dark Elves, Chaos Dwarves, Ogre Kingdoms, Demons, Lizards, Skaven, and then obviously all the sub factions, etc. as well,
right.
all the other bits and pieces. So that's Royal Host. Oddly enough, is the least popular, but also the highest win rate. So I guess that just shows you that who the people that figured them out have really figured them out, and we have seen, you know, some of the nastier lists played out there as well. Okay, this is cool, and this is very interesting. I think this is a very cool tool. So, where do you go from there? What's the future for this? What do you plan to do with it?
That's a great question. I would I'm gonna continue to just like scrape the data
Mm,
and compile it. I'd like to add in some more features. I'd like to do like an over the board versus a online. So
mm,
they'll both still feed into that master sheet that you were showing, but eventually I'd like to just have that also bracketed out so people can kind of see like, oh, like how do people perform over the board versus online, and then eventually we would integrate that to factions as well. How do factions perform over the board versus online?
yeah,
Because I would say my intuitive guess is like when you're playing online, there's more optimization happening there. Like
yeah. You
you're
think?
getting a higher you're getting a higher percentage of lists that are going to be more efficient, more optimized versus kind of those metrics and bullet points I was mentioning were real cool and all of that.
Yeah,
That's happening in person. So I'd like to kind of do that. That's one of the next things that we're looking at doing and kind of breaking that out for everybody. And then going from there, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to maybe get this to a point where maybe we warehouse it on a website of some kind or something of that nature. I know like Old World Rankings is phenomenal. Like it
yeah,
looks amazing. They have a great UI. They've done a really good job with all of that. So um, maybe we kind of get into eventually something along those lines. Again, this has mainly just been for like the community driven stuff.
passion project. Yeah,
It's a passion project. Everyone's doing it for the community, but this is obviously specifically just been some of the stuff that I was felt was maybe like lacking, and I kind of wanted to see.
yeah.
So
No, I think it's very cool. It's very cool. And if anybody wants to get a hold of it, who do they need to bribe?
I think they just have to look at your video, right? Are we going to have a little link so
We'll
that
have a
people
little
can
link. We'll
drop
have a
it
little
down
link.
and
That's it. Yeah, we'll have a
they
link
can, yeah,
to Adam's Old World Rankings and a bunch of other places that you can find this information, and then you can play with it yourself. And if it's any problems with numbers, you speak to Corey. But if it's any functionality, yeah, I'm sure Adam would be more than interested to hear.
Yeah,
I think it's a
really.
very, very cool tool. It's very interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed just like poring over the data. As a bit of a data junkie, I think like a lot of us are. It definitely gives me ideas as to maybe which armies need looked at, which how much to sort of tweak things and bits and pieces. So I think it's going to be a tool that we'll just continue using, and I think it's going to be very good. So thank you for putting it together. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Cool. Excellent. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, just I look forward to seeing you in SBOT 3.
On the finals maybe again?
I mean, if we're lucky enough, right?
If we're lucky. If we live that long, who knows? We really don't
Yeah,
know.
geez.
All right, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. If you think this is worth a follow, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. The link for this is going to be in the description. Play around with it. Let us know what the feedback is. I think Adam will be. This is the first time it's gone sort of wide
Yeah,
public, so I think people will have some things positive feedback and bits and pieces. So we'd be more than happy to hear it. So thank you very much,
yeah,
Adam. Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.